What's going on, operators, and welcome back to another video. Today we'll be looking at a trifecta of affordable yet essential firearms accessories generously sent over by Feyachi for review. So yes, they are sponsoring today's video, but as always they've agreed to the CEO review policy found in the description. No money changed hands, and they will not have the benefit of influencing the video nor seeing it before you will. That being said, we'll be looking at their red dot, their flashlight, and their bipod. Of course, if you'd like to pick one of these up by the end of the video, we'll have some affiliate links down below to Amazon where you can do so. They really do help the channel a lot, so if you'd like to get one of these, please consider just using one of our links. It helps the channel so much more than any YouTube ads ever could, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. That being said, if you value this kind of open, honest, transparent, and groundbreaking editorial content, do consider subscribing and becoming one of our Discord community members. Of course, checking out CanadianOperator.ca as well. All of that linked down below. With that out of the way, let's get it started. All right, fellas, so let's go ahead and talk about some of these accessories here before we move on to the optic. I'll try to keep this nice and quick if I can actually pick these little caps up with my giant gorilla hands. So the caps, you get two of these, of course, one for the objective, one for the ocular lens, and they've got some nice hinges on them. These are great because you're not going to lose them, and even if they do get a little loose over time, they're going to stay on the optic. I can't tell you how many times I bought an expensive optic in the $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 level, and you know, they come with these cheap, crappy caps that are using some kind of friction fit system or elastic bands, and they just break over time, which means that I lose them, and it's just completely useless. These are great because once you put them on, they're going to stay on there, so even if they get a little loose, you're not going to lose them, and they'll be able to do what they were designed to do, and that is to protect your lenses from dust, debris, moisture, impacts, and so on. So great to see that there. And moving right along, we've got a little baggie here with a spare battery, an Allen key, and some extra screws. So that's great to see. Not too much to say about that. And we do have a little co-witness mount, and aside from the fact that it's included, which was a pleasant surprise, it's actually made of metal, which is another pleasant surprise. So nice to see that. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this or what it is, but essentially a co-witness mount allows you to mount your optic in such a way that it coincides with where your iron sights are. So in some cases, you know, if you want to use your iron sights for one distance and your optic for another distance and be able to interchangeably use those between different distances, you can do that. Of course, you can also use your backup sights very easily, or your iron sights rather, as a backup in case something happens to your optic. So that is the predominant reason why most people would want to use something like this. Now there is a detriment which is called height over bore. In fact, it's something that in my Tika video a lot of you guys gave me a hard time over, and you were right. But it's especially important in that type of scenario where you're using a long-range rifle with a long-range scope. The height over bore certainly matters a lot more in that case than it does here. And of course, there's a lot more benefits keeping it as low as possible in that situation versus here, where you can use a co-witness mount to be able to co-witness with your iron sights. But I digress. On the bottom here, we do have a little screw, of course, that's going through, that's going to secure this on your mil-spec 1913 pick rail, and that is going to act as a recoil bolt as well. So when you mount this, you want to mount it as far forward in your Picatinny slot as you can, because essentially the recoil will move the gun back, and that will allow you to keep this as secure as possible so that you don't lose zero. Same thing on the top, you've got a little nipple here, giggity, which also acts as a little recoil bolt or a recoil lug to prevent the optic from moving around. I like the design here. Overall, this feels very nice. It is going to add a little bit of weight, but if you want to use one of these, you can, because guess what? It's included. And finally, you thought we were going to talk about the optic. Soon, my friends, soon. We've got a little cleaning cloth here. Not too much to say about that. Nice that it's included. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, maybe. We've got the actual optic itself. Now again, this is a first impressions for me, so keep that in mind. I don't know too much about this optic because I haven't really read the manual. I haven't really put it on a gun just yet, but we will be doing that on the full video review, so stay tuned for that. As always, we're going to start from the front, work our way to the back. So on the front here, you might not actually be able to fully see the objective lens, and that is because we've got a little filter on here. Just carefully unscrew that. And that is a nice little anti-reflection filter on the front. And as you can see now, probably as I move this around a little bit, you can see a little reflection coming off that ocular, or the objective lens rather. And you know, it's interesting, it's nice to see that included as well. The frame is aluminum just like the actual optic is, and having been in videography for quite some time and a lot of photography before then, I use a lot of these very similar filters in my lights in the studio to prevent the refraction of light and to direct that light in a specific direction where I want it to go and to prevent it from scattering too much. So what that filter will do is it'll actually prevent the scattering of light coming in at all different directions through the objective lens, which is very good, but it's also going to help remove the glint of the scope so that you're not giving your position away, for example, to an animal. Now, I don't know that you would really be using this for hunting, maybe for coyotes or something like that, or maybe small game, I don't know, but it will prevent that glint from coming out, and it will prevent the scattering of light from coming in from all sorts of different angles, so that'll give you a lot of clarity, and it's great that that's included. Now, moving on to the side here, of course, we've got the standard pick rail mount. Very easy, very, very simple. We've got a little turning thing here. Turning thing, God, my vocabulary is just something else today, guys. So you got a little cap here that unscrews. This is metal as well, and I'm just carefully unscrew this because this is all metal, which is really nice to see. You've got your battery, as I said, pre-installed, and we'll go ahead and put that back on there with all the finesse of gigantic gorilla paws. I'll get it one of these days, guys, I promise. It only took 5 minutes. You've got a little slot there for using a coin or maybe a screwdriver or something like that. If you don't know your own strength and you put that on too tight. But I did see a little seal in there as well, so presumably that's going to protect the electronics in there and your battery from moisture, which will be good. It's a good thing. You've got your adjustments here, so you've got your windage right there and your your elevation up here, your windage right here. These will unscrew as well, presumably. There we go. Very fine thread on this, so it'll take a little while. There we go. Or long thread, I should say. But there you go. So that's very typical of a red dot sight, and what's kind of nice is you do have your little slot here that you can turn this upside down and use that in here. Now, to be honest, I don't think I have the dexterity for that, so I'd probably prefer to use something like a coin or a little pocket screwdriver or something like that. But in a pinch, you can absolutely use the back end of the cap and you're good to go. So that's there. Your other adjustment's going to be up here. And then on this side, you've got 3 buttons there. You're going to have your up, your down, and of course your on and off. You do have shake awake on here, which is nice. And I don't know exactly how many brightness modes there are. I believe there are 10. With Feyachi claiming that at least 2 of them are night vision capable and the rest are daytime. Again, watch for the full video. We'll go into a little bit more depth on that. As for the ocular lens on this side, it's quite nice, pretty par for the course, which you would expect from a standard red dot. Nothing too crazy there, or nothing to really write home about. But the glass seems to be quite clear and really nice, so no complaints there. Overall, the body as well, all metal. It just feels really, really solid. Definitely going to add a little bit of extra weight compared to something with a little bit of a cheaper construction, but I'd say the price is definitely worth it to pay in terms of the quality that you're getting for the price that you're paying as well. All right, fellas, so next up is going to be the WL25 flashlight. Now, this is just the box because I do have it mounted on my Tavor, which I promise I will show you in due time. I just want to show you what's included here and go over a couple of the basic features here. So this is available in black and in FDE. I got the FDE, of course, because that's the color that my Tavor is in. And they're claiming 1200 lumens and over 640 feet of throw, an hour and a half in terms of battery life. I'm guessing that's continuous. And if it is actually 1200 lumens, then that actually makes sense. And then we've got IPX4 water resistance or moisture resistance, and of course also apparently it is drop tested or drop resistant. So nice to see that here. The packaging is actually quite nice as well. It's sort of a nice flat packaging, as you can see there. And let's go ahead and crack this open quickly, just to show you what it looks like. We've got some foam on the top, we'll put that away, and we've got some nice laser cut foam, at least it looks like that, inside to keep everything nice and safe. Now, this is going to be a spare part that actually comes installed on the actual flashlight, and this is if you just want to use the back to actuate it on and off. Now, I have it set up a little differently using something that came in the box, which I'll show you in just a second. We do also have a charger and a USB-A to USB-C cable. The charger is charging one of the 2 LiPo batteries right now, so I can't show you that. I will show you that in the full video. But we do also have some hardware here alongside with an Allen key, and then of course a little instructional card as well. So that's kind of nice. And on the bottom we also have a little bit of foam. So this is really nicely put together, and I gotta say it was pretty tight, giggity, when it was all in here when I opened it up the first time. But it's just nice to see again all these little extras coming with the product. So let's go ahead and put this away. I'm gonna go ahead and grab the Tavor, and I'm gonna show you what it looks like because it's pretty damn dope. All right, fellas, so in order to demonstrate how the flashlight and the bipod, which we'll talk about later, looks on a firearm, I've got my trusty X95. This guy is in 5.56x45 NATO. Of course, we are nice and unloaded. As you can see, our chamber is open. I've already cleared the firearm, so we're good to go in that respect. And we'll first talk a little bit about the configuration of the flashlight here, and then of course we'll move on to the bipod, which as crazy as it looks on a Tavor, and to be honest, helped me to get about an MOA and a half on a 100-meter range a few days ago in collaboration here with the XPS3 and the G33 magnifier. Very impressive performance, honestly. I'm quite surprised in a pleasant way and happy with that. So we'll talk about that in a second. Let's just first of all talk about the light. So the light, first of all, the materials seems to be all made out of metal, which is nice. And this does come in FDE as well as black. Of course, I had to get the FDE because, of course, I had to get the FDE. Now, as far as the mount goes, this is, I guess, what I would call a unibody mount. It is not a quick release. I don't want it to be a quick release. Quick release for something like an optic totally makes sense. A quick release for something like this, I don't find like it's a big deal, especially since these are not $200-300. They are significantly less. And if you have multiple rifles that you feel like you need to have a flashlight on, then there's going to be really very little obstacle standing in your way with respect to going out and just getting another one, right? So in my opinion, I don't think that a quick release is necessary for these. Now, Feyachi could make a few extra bucks by selling you one or making them in a way where maybe they come with one or they're eligible with a product that you can buy, you know, as an addition to it. But to be honest, I really don't think that's necessary. And the reason for that is because I feel like the more moving parts, the more connections you have, the more potential points of failure you're going to have as well. And there's really no point. Again, these are so affordable. Just go get another one. It's not a big deal. Now, with respect to the mount, though, it is, like I said, connected to the body here, which is all metal, which is great. We have 2 small screws and a thumb screw, but one of my sort of grievances there is that the thumb screw alone is not enough to take it on, to take it off and put it on. And so you do have to unscrew the 2 little screws just a little bit, then the thumb screw will work. Now, again, I haven't gone through the documentation, so I don't know if there's some kind of secret sauce way to do it with just a thumb screw. But in any case, that's just been my experience so far. And that's probably the only critique that I have for it. It's nice and bright. There's a few different modes, and there's a couple of different configuration methods here as well. Now, with respect to brightness, throw, battery life, and all these things, make sure to subscribe because I'm going to be doing a full video review, and we'll be talking and testing about all those different things at that point in time. For now, just a very quick overview. But with respect to the throw, it seems to be pretty strong. And again, the battery life, I've only been using it for a couple of days. So far, so good. So we have a couple of different configurations. As you can see, I've got a little cable coming out of here, and I've got that coming over to the other side, which I'll show you what that looks like in just a little bit. But this does come with the standard cap as well, which has the little rubberized button on the back. If you've skipped to this and haven't seen the part of the video where I actually unbox it or I open the box and I show the accessories that come with it, that is the cap that comes screwed on by default. Okay, so if you wanted to, if for example, you couldn't have too many bulky things on the right side of your gun, or you're a different handedness or whatever it is, where you needed to have the flashlight without the cable here, you can absolutely run it that way. And that button is going to basically be a combination of the standard on-off and the momentary / strobe button, which I'll show you in a second on the other side here. It'll basically be a combination of that. So you can press it in with your thumb while holding your grip, for example, if the light was on this side, and I'd be able to use my thumb there to turn it on, turn it off, and then hold it as a momentary or double tap with the momentary of that button without pushing hard enough to get that click, and that would give me a momentary on or a strobe as well. Now the strobe, I'm not really sure what you'd use that for. It's nice to have, I suppose, but I found out kind of by accident just playing around with it because, again, I didn't really have the time to go through all the documentation and do all the reading and all that good stuff. But that being said, those are the 2 modes you can run it in. And again, this being a more modern firearm, nice to know that I can just toss it pretty much anywhere I want. Of course, the top rail wouldn't make much sense, but hey, maybe even on the bottom with the bipod being out of the way. So there's a lot of options there. Let's flip it over to the other side here so you guys can see exactly what that looks like. So on the other side here, we've got a nice little configuration. Now again, one small grievance here, I'll get to it in a second. but it's not a big deal. So I actually really like the way that this is laid out. It's very simple. You've got your momentary pad right here. So if you hold that, as you can see, it's on. If you double tap and hold the second tap, you're going to get a nice strobe there. And then of course you have your on and your off, and this is a guarded switch here as well. So that's nice. It means you're not going to be turning it on, you know, for basically inevitably until you turn it off by accident. So that's quite nice to have that little guard there. Now you've got a couple of screws here. So you've got one right there and right there. And these are nice little hex screws. And by the way, you do get all the hardware and everything. So you get the screws and the Allen keys and all that stuff with this, which is great, so that you don't have to lug around an entire kit with you. But here's where we're going to talk a little bit about one of my little tiny gripes. And that's that this is the way it's set up, where the top piece here fits into the bottom piece. So before you screw the top piece into the bottom piece, you have the bottom piece, which is made of, it feels almost like a hard rubber. It's got a really good mix of elasticity and firmness to it. And basically it's got the inverse of your pick rail on the bottom of it, so that you can snap it into your pick rail and it just holds there by friction. Now that's great. It's a great design, and it makes it really easy to move around and change and put in different places. So that was a great idea on Feyachi's part. Now what I wish that they would change maybe in a second iteration is that you can see how there's a bit of a chevron shaped angle over here, and it's kind of flat on the other side. So while the screws are a set distance away from one another, if this was actually a universal shape, which would allow you to flip this over to where the cable's coming out the other side, if that's what you wanted to do. Obvious for me, it's going to be better coming out this way. But instead of having to unscrew this, take it off, take the actual bottom piece off, flip it around, screw everything back in, it would just be nice if the bottom piece was a universal shape, where the top piece would fit in either with the cable going forward or with the cable going backward. I feel like as far as design is concerned, that is the only thing that I would maybe want to change. Now again, it's not a big deal. If you want the cable going the other way, just unscrew it, take this bottom piece off, flip it around and put everything back in, and Bob's your uncle and you're good to go. But for convenience, for being able to do things quickly and just making things as nice and easy and straightforward as possible, having a universal lower bracket would probably be the best way to go. That's the only concern that I have. It's not even really a concern, it's just a little gripe. But that's it. So you've got your momentary, your on and off, two little screws there. That's going to hang on there without an issue. And then of course you've got your light on the other side. Alrighty folks, so next up let's just talk about the bipod quickly here. And before anybody starts World War III in the comments section there, I do realize how silly this looks on the X95. The reason why I did that was for practical reasons, to keep everything together nice and easy to be able to share in a single video. Of course, this will be on a very different gun the next time that you see it, because it will be a full video review in which I'll probably be replacing that rickety Magpul bipod with this. And that should tell you everything you need to know about this particular bipod. But if you want to know a little bit more, well, let's talk about it. So basically, full metal design here, which is really nice. Comes in FDE. I do believe it also comes in black. I'm not 100% sure if I saw an olive drab option there, but definitely at least in black and FDE, or as they call sand. So that probably is my first gripe, is that it does look ever so slightly darker. But as we all know, there's about 1,000 shades of FDE out there, which really ought to be a book that somebody should write for all us gun enthusiasts, but I digress. So that is probably my only complaint, because honestly this thing is built like a brick shithouse, which for those of you who don't have excellent command of the English language should know that that is a compliment. Now, we're going to go ahead and bring this up so I can show you what this looks like. So you've got these little metal paddles here, and that extends to the full height, which I'm going to actually put that in the video because I'm not 100% sure what the height range is here. Again, it's just a first impressions video, so not going to be super detailed, but I'll try to include that in the video or a pinned comment if I can. But you have a bunch of little steps here that you can stop down to based on how much height you need. So far so good, pretty standard, right? Now, one of the other things is here that we have some nice rubber feet. Again, this is not anything new. Any bipod worth its weight in gold should have some nice rubber feet. And these feel like they're about the same size and configuration to be interchangeable with Atlas feet. Not 100% sure on that. Again, I'll make sure to include that in the full video, but it does feel like that. Now that being said, this bipod does not have swivel, and swivel in my opinion is a subjective thing. Some people really love it. I hate it. I just don't think there's any room to have it if you have oriented your optics properly. If you are on a nice stable surface, which most of the time I am because I'm just shooting at the range, in my opinion, there's just no need to include extra points of contact, extra points of failure. There's just no reason for that. I like it the way it is. I want to use it nice and straight. And you know what? If I'm on a slightly uneven surface, I'm sure I can find a way to correct for that. I don't like anything swiveling around on the back here. The RVG getting in the way as always. So yeah, I don't think that's a big deal for me. It might be or might not be for you. Let me know what you prefer in the comments. But to be honest, I don't like the whole swivel thing. I like to keep things nice and simple, purpose-made, and just easy to use. Now, I'm not sure if I've mentioned it again here. I'm just going to mention it very quickly that I'm very happy that Feyachi included this adapter. So this is a swivel stud bipod. However, there is a metal adapter included for your convenience as well if you've got something more modern like this X95 that will allow you to take that swivel stud, convert that to a standard 1913 pick rail, and then Bob's your uncle. So thank you for those guys at Feyachi that came up with the idea of, hey, let's include this because we know that our customers are either going to have a modern or a traditional rifle, as opposed to thinking like some of these other companies, hey, how can we screw these people for even more? Why don't we sell one of these adapters for like 60 bucks? They're going to buy it anyway because they need it. I hate companies like that. And there's been times where I've actually stopped using or boycotted major brand companies because they're just so damn greedy. There's no need for that, right? If you make good products at a reasonable, affordable, and competitive price, people will just naturally want to buy from you. And the fact that this is a nice metal construction, it's got pretty much all the features that I could ever want on a bipod, and it's got a nice little adapter that comes with it that I don't have to spend extra money buying separately, not to mention being probably a fourth or a fifth of the price of some of the other bipods out there. I gotta say, it's some pretty good value. Again, it remains to be battle tested, it remains to be torture tested, it remains to have a full CO review video made on it, but my first impressions, I really like it. Again, my only sort of gripe there is that I wish that the color was just a little bit lighter, and I'm not saying that because I'm just so posh and, you know, I just want everything to beautifully match my FDE all over, because as you can see, I mean, even the EOTech doesn't match, right? So I would have no hope in hell in complaining about this not matching if a very exorbitantly expensive EOTech optic can't do it. But that being said, they should at least color match it to their other accessories. And that's kind of where I was going with that. That'll be it for the bipod. Let's go ahead and talk about my conclusions. All right, so first and foremost is the 2 MOA red dot. And honestly, I think everybody needs a red dot. Red dots are super ubiquitous and they're fairly inexpensive these days, even from really big name brands. I mean, you can probably find one for about $200 or $300, but this one is a lot less than that, and the value proposition here is actually really good. Now, as for my first impressions, I felt that the presentation and just the way that it was sent to me was really nice. I imagined that everybody else will be getting it the same way. It came in a cardboard box, but once I opened that up, I was surprised to see a nice plastic box. Giggity. It wasn't some kind of paper or cardboard or something like that. Like, you know, it was just a nice solid box with a clasp. I opened that up and there was foam inside. Everything was well presented, well protected. That automatically made a really good first impression because I really wasn't expecting that. So that was quite nice. In terms of the materials, I really like the materials as well. I can't really speak too much to the glass or the coatings on the glass. Being a videographer and a former photographer, I can tell you that glass is very, very difficult and expensive to make right. Optical glass being among some of the most expensive there, right? Because you have to make it to a certain standard for it to function in the way that it's meant to function. So when you're comparing something like this versus a Trijicon, the Trijicon will be a lot more expensive, not just because of the super well-known name brand, but also because they're probably making much better quality glass, but you're paying for that, right? Whereas here, I honestly couldn't tell the difference just by looking through it. Maybe on a microscopic level you can, but me personally, I have the EOTech on here, as you guys saw, and that looks good to me. And then I looked through the red dot, and that looks good to me too. There were no scratches or issues with the glass optically. It looked fine. So for me, it doesn't really matter. I think as long as the quality of the product is there and it doesn't scratch easily or break easily, then I'm okay with that. Metal pretty much all the way around as far as materials go, that was nice too. It's great to see that. Even the little filter that they included, which they absolutely didn't have to do, that was made out of metal as well. And then of course, also the co-witness mount. And this is another plus here. When a company understands their customers and or understands how those products that the customers are buying are going to be used, that is a huge plus for me. And then on top of that, giving you those little extras that probably didn't cost them a lot of money, but will go a long way with the customer. That I really like as well. So I really appreciate that they included that little filter, that little extra mount. That was nice. Of course, getting the extra screws, the Allen key. That's a bit kind of standard, I would say. That's par for the course. You're expecting that if you're going to spend any money on an optic, that you're going to get the hardware to mount it. But, you know, those little extras also add up, and that's quite nice. Other than that, I can't really speak too much more about it, just because, again, I haven't had the period of time that I require to properly understand how it works and whether it's going to be reliable over the long term and so on. But as a first impression, I can't recommend this enough. I think it was well made, well presented. The instructions were easy to follow. That's another plus, so it's quite nice. Little extras included, and the materials were great. So really nothing bad to say about this at all. I really had a great experience opening it up and handling it for the first time, and I'm hoping it'll be equally as positive after I've had a few months shooting it, or shooting with it on one of my firearms. All right, so next up, we'll talk about the flashlight briefly. And again, there's a pattern here. The value proposition on the flashlight seems to be pretty good. I've done a lot of window shopping at some of the sort of well-known or more known manufacturers out there who are selling flashlights for like, you know, 150, 200, 250, 300 bucks. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this isn't, you know, a scope, right? This isn't an optic. We're not doing optical grade glass here. We're not buying a lens for a camera. Like, it's just a flashlight, right? Why do they have to be that expensive? And if you happen to know why, aside from just marketing and whatever, then, you know, let me know down below. But to be honest, I feel like the value proposition here is very good. Again, it's not an expensive product, but it comes with a lot of extras, and it seems to be well built and well presented, just like the Red Dot sight was. So I was pretty happy with the packaging. It was a cardboard box, so unlike you know, the nice plastic box with the Red Dot sight, but when I opened that up, there was some nice laser cut foam, and everything was organized nicely, and you got a bunch of extras as well. You got 2 LiPo batteries, which that was really nice to see. I do believe it's LiPo. I may be wrong on that, but I'll correct it in the future video where I'll be reviewing this if that's the case. You get 2 end caps. You get the standard end cap, and of course you get the one with the little wire coming out that's got a pressure pad for the momentary and the strobe, as well as the on and off. That's great because, again, they understand how these products are going to be used. I applaud that. That is awesome to know your customer base and know how they're going to use your products. It's fantastic. So I like that. I like the fact that it comes in both black and FDE. The metal construction is a plus. There's 2 downsides for me here. One is that I feel like because there's 2 screws on one side of the mount and the thumb screw on the other, I feel like there may have been an implied, you know, you're able to maybe take this off with just a thumb screw, which in my experience wasn't the case. So I feel like if that's where they were going and they wanted to make a QR mount for this, then potentially that is something that I could see that people would want to buy. If somebody just really wants to save money and have just one flashlight for a number of different firearms, then that might work. Again, for me, that's not the end of the world. I don't mind it, and it's so affordable that if I want another flashlight, I can just buy another one, right? It's fine. But if they wanted to improve it, then that would be my recommendation, would be, you know, only have one point of contact where you're actually screwing something. So don't have screws going from one side and then from the other. Do it just from one side if it's possible, and make a QR if you want to do that as a separate product, or maybe include it as a package in another version of the same flashlight. I think that would work really well. The only other con I would say is that it, you know, it doesn't perfectly color match with my gun, although it is a lighter FDE than the sand color of the Bipod, which we'll get to. Again, not a big deal. There are probably thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of different shades of FDE that are created by various different companies on thousands of different products. It's not a big deal, right? If anything, that would probably be more of a concern that I had for the Bipod, because it was a lot more evident on the Bipod than it was here. Here, again, the only concern that I had, which is barely a concern, is that, you know, maybe we make the mount a little simpler, and potentially maybe on the side as a separate SKU create a QR which you can just quick detach, maybe with magnets or another type of friction fit quick release system or something like that. I think that'd be really cool. So that's going to wrap it up for the flashlight. Do I recommend it? Yes, I do. I think it's well presented. The materials are great. It's well put together. It's a great value for what you're paying, and it's easy to use. I mean, again, very easy to follow. As for long-term efficiency and consistency and reliability and stuff, that remains to be seen. Stay tuned for my full review to find out. All right, so finally, let's very quickly talk about the bipod. And I'm going to be honest with you here, guys, there is not much to write home about this bipod, and that's actually a good thing. It's a very simple mechanical device that does what it says on the tin. In fact, I like it so much, I think I'm going to be replacing the bipod on the end of my Tikka T3X TAC A1, and that should tell you a thing or two. You're not going to be paying an arm and a leg for one of these, so the value proposition, again, is going to be very good, and it is a simple device that works as intended. You've got some good adjustability, and of course, you've got that nice little adapter that they throw in so that you can put this on a more traditional rifle with a swivel stud or a more modern rifle with a 1913 pick rail. That is awesome, and I wish more companies did that. The only thing I didn't like about it is it's not really FDE, but I can't blame them. They call their color sand for this, and it is definitely a bit darker than what I would like. It doesn't really match up with the flashlight and the rest of my gun, but again, neither does my EOTech, right? It's not a big deal. It's just a personal little gripe, but I feel like if they could make it a little bit lighter and make it less of a sand and more of like a tan, like a lot of the other FDE stuff is, I think that'd be really nice. Do they need to do that for the bipod to work properly? No. And so, yeah, even though it does look a little silly on my Tavor, I think it is going to serve my Tikka really, really well. I did actually use this. This was the only product that I actually got a chance to use a couple of days ago when I took my Tavor out and did some shooting with a good friend of mine who I haven't seen in a couple of months. And I got to be honest, guys, it helped me to get an MOA and a half on a 100-meter range. And I did testing without using the bipod, and I was barely able to get 3 to 4 MOA on the 100-meter because I was just so damn shaky. So the fact that I was using this to get me 2.5 to 3.5 MOA or so better than what I was just hand holding it just goes to show it's a simple product, but it does what it says on the tin. At the end of the day, that's the most important thing for me, and the value proposition is definitely there as well. So again, while time is going to be probably a factor in determining whether this is going to be resilient and consistent and all that, into my ownership of the product, I gotta say from my first impressions, I'm quite happy. And from my first very limited use case a couple of days ago, I'm also quite happy with that. So I would definitely recommend it as well. Thanks very much for watching, everybody, and thank you to Feyachi especially for supporting the channel and sponsoring today's video with their products. If you'd like to get your hands on one of them, I'll leave Amazon affiliate links down below. They really do help the channel, as does subscribing, liking, and sharing the video, of course. If you want to go above and beyond that and keep me well caffeinated, you can use the super thanks button as well as our VIP access link down below, which is a Discord-based rewards program that gives our VIPs, these wonderful people over here, some extra perks and a bunch of extra benefits and stuff like that that are all based on Discord and the YouTube channel. So if you want to check that out, click the link below, join our Discord, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the next video, and until then, happy shooting.